Right. Well, welcome to another edition of the Mile High Real Estate Spotlight Podcast. And I am so excited today to have Andrew Malkoski on. And he is going, he's doing a lot of listings right now. He is one of the best real estate agents that you can find in the southeast side of town. And what's so amazing is he not only understands the real estate, but he grew up here. He understands what's going on. And when we think about markets, and one of the things that is kind of plaguing, and as you most of you know, I do lending, and thinking about this whole market, and specializing in reverse mortgages and helping people out, is that this is just times that I don't know if we've ever seen before. It's times where where not only is the interest rate up, but housing prices are up at the same time, and that hasn't been something, at least in my lifetime, since I've been doing this since the early 2000s, that has happened. That those two things are the same. Usually, if the interest rates are up, then maybe the prices are a little bit down. But being at the same time, but we're still in probably the best place to live. That this side of the Mississippi, right? As I would love to say, people love Colorado. My wife's a California girl. She grew up in California, was born in California. We moved back out here. I'm a native. We moved back out here in 2009. And what I realized is she's not going back. I've suggested to her, maybe not California. How about maybe we go to Arizona or go to Texas? We can do, we have all these choices, and we're looking at stuff in Flagstaff. And she's like, I'm not leaving Colorado. In fact, my parents are coming here. My sister's coming here. We're gonna have to find houses for them and that kind of stuff. So you can imagine, Andrew, what it's like in our house is, okay, we bought this house. Now we need to move to another house. I don't know if I want to pay that much for one of these houses right now. And she's like, I don't care what you do. We're not going anywhere. I love Colorado. I love it. So just having fun. And so, as today, as we move forward and talking, I want to make sure you guys know that there is inventory, although there's not as much inventory as people have. There are ways to get into some of the loans that, I say this a lot, even though interest rates may seem like they're super high, they're normal. That we were on a clearance sale the last 5 years, and those 2 and 3% rates were kind of never heard of. But yet, you don't want to wait, and there is a cost of waiting. And Andrew and I will talk about that a little bit later in the show. But if you have the ability and you can get into a home, it is so much better than renting. In Southeast Aurora, Andrew, before I introduce you, but kind of tell me, well, not Southeast Aurora, just the southeast side of town. What are rents in some of those nicer apartments off of Rapo Road, or some of those nice apartments out on Lone Tree? What are people paying
Oh,
for rent right now?
I mean, if you're going two bedrooms or more, I think you're well over $2,500 a month at this point,
Yeah,
especially for some of the areas that you're mentioning, right? This Southeast Aurora,
yeah,
the Parker, Castle Rock, Lone Tree. I mean, I think the sticker price starts at about 2,500. Um,
goes up, right?
yeah, and it's a challenge out there for sure.
Yeah, so just thinking about that, at 2,500 or 3,000 in a month, if you did that for 1 year, right? For 1 year, you're at 2,500 would be you $30,000
Yeah.
in 1 year. $30,000 in 1 year. You times that by 10 years, that's
Oh yeah.
$300,000 that you're going to give to a landlord if you're renting for the next 10 years. And I know there are pluses to renting. I can't think of many of them, but there are pluses to renting. Like you don't have to do, some of the landscape, or I guess if something breaks, you don't have to fix it. Somebody else calls somebody to fix it. I'm not going to say you don't have to pay for it, because usually the landlord figures out a way for you to pay
Yeah.
for it, right? Gotcha. So we'll continue to talk about that, but that's one thing. If you have the ability to get into a home, and there are some really good deals, especially with down payment assistance programs that are out there right now, and some wonderful things that are out there. So Andrew, thank you for being on. I appreciate you coming in today and just talking about the best way that we can get home ownership into people's homes. If you could just first introduce yourself, tell people how to get a hold of you, and then just kind of walk into your background a little bit so that we can know who you are before we get into some of the nitty gritty and stuff.
Sure. Well, Brian, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor to be on here. My name is Andrew Malkoski. I am with a company called the Denver 100. We are a smaller boutique firm out of Inglewood, Colorado. We're located just across the highway from Park Meadows. You can get a hold of me. You can either call me. My phone number is 303-902-8209. How often do people give phone numbers on podcasts? So I don't know. But that's how
we're gonna put it now. We're gonna put it underneath too, so they can read it. So
you can also look my name up here on social media. You can find me Facebook. You can find me on Instagram. Theoretically, you can find me on LinkedIn. I don't use that a ton, but I'm there. Okay. But the other easy way to get a hold of me is if you go to Den100, Denver100.com, you're gonna find me on our broker page there. I am a broker associate there. I'm also a part owner. We are a broker-owned company, so there are a few of us that are minority owners at the firm, and I'm just lucky to be able to say that I'm one of those people.
Ownership is nice. Ownership is so important in our society today, and it keeps that skin in the game. And whether it's you owning a house, even owning a car is just pretty cool, other than leasing it or renting it. As you can tell, I'm a big proponent of ownership. So, give us a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in this here industry, and why do you love it so much?
Man, to make the story, I mean, absolutely as short as possible. I spent a little bit more than a decade in the service industry, in restaurants, specifically in the section of sports bars. I was a manager and a part owner of one of the bars, and it's a wonderful, fun place to be for a long time. But I'll tell you what, after a decade in it, I just started looking for what my next opportunity was. I wanted to take the service-oriented mind that I had and everything that I learned about how to serve people and find a new outlet for it in a way that would allow me to grow as a business, as a person, but to really to serve other people. And it's one of the things I love most about what you and I get to do is it's not about us. It's about that buyer, that seller. They have a problem. We have the ability to help them solve it. And that's all I want to do.
Oh, that is cool. So you grew up in the area, and
native like you.
Yeah, like me. So you know the area well. Are there any like favorite parts of town that you would say, hey, this is where I just love to spend more time, or do you just enjoy, hey, I love to go up in the mountains and hang out, or you can't say I like to go to the ocean because there's no ocean here, but
no ocean here.
What are on the plains and pick cantaloupe? What is your favorite part of what we have here?
As far as being a Colorado native, I'm probably a funny guy because I don't love the mountains during the winter. I don't want to drive up there in the snow. I no longer ski or snowboard that I grew up doing a little bit of all of that. Once you hurt yourself real bad, it's hard to pick that back up. But I do love the mountains during the summer. I love going up there, the forest, the leaves, the trees, all of that. Getting some good old fashioned hiking in. But as far as the Denver metro area, I mean, I grew up in Aurora. I live in Southeast Denver now, and I think that one of the most interesting things that we have in this metro area is just all the really different pockets of our metro area. I mean, Denver feels different than Aurora, and Aurora is so big now that it feels, different areas of Aurora have just such vastly different feelings to them. And I get to drive all over the place, and I get to see all these different places and interact with people. And I love doing it. I love being all over the place and getting to see these things. So,
I love it. I love it. What can a potential buyer or seller expect from you? I mean, if somebody is saying, hey, I want to go to Andrew. I like the way he looks. I like what he stands for. What could they get? I mean, what do they expect when you are working with them?
Oh, that's a great question, Brian. Thank you. I think the word service gets thrown around in our industry a lot, but I think that what people need to expect from anybody they're working with, and what I think they should expect from me, is a higher level of service than they expected to get. So with the Denver 100, pretty much all the brokers that work at the Denver 100, I'd like to say that I could speak for all of us, but I can speak for myself. We offer enhanced service packages to both buyers and sellers. And so it's not just that you are buying or selling a home. It's that I want to make sure that you have the products and services necessary for the process of buying your home, after you own the home, the process of selling your house, after you've sold the house. I want to make sure that you are walking through this process and it is as easy as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I think that anybody that does this would agree, there really isn't anything easy about moving.
Yeah.
And when you start factoring in the fact that you have the wheels of finance that are churning with, your own personal finance and potentially loans, you're buying and selling what some of us will ever have as the largest assets in our names. It's not just a move, right? Like you talked about renting earlier, and if you have to move apartments, it's a pain,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt, right? But once you get to the idea of buying and selling a house and that moving, there's nothing easy about it from a end user standpoint. And so my goal is to provide services that are going to make that as easy as possible, okay? And make you as comfortable as possible and take as much of the burden off of the client as I can to ease that process to every degree that I can.
Gotcha. Well, and I can definitely say you say there's nothing fun about moving. There's nothing fun about the process of going through buying a house. I mean, the fun part is when you get the house, you walk in, you get the keys, and
Yeah,
it's yours, right? But the process, because we've made it so daunting, we've made it so extreme in the process of it's not just, like you go and buy a car. Even buying a car is not as fun. You might be there for 4 hours, talking to somebody. But that whole process of, they want to know everything about your life, or at least as a lender. I'm asking
oh
you
yeah,
questions that I feel embarrassed asking you, because I really don't want to know that. But for the bank to lend you that kind of money, they act like they need to know like what blood type you have, right?
oh
And
yeah,
then, and so you start going through this whole process, and even finding a place can be, as you're taking people around, and you're trying to figure out what is it that they really like and what is they want, and then they go into some other person's, if it's not a brand new build, right? It's somebody else's home. It was somebody else's dream at one point, and you're trying to figure out, how do I make this, or how do I envision this to be my dream? And then you
yeah,
ask me to do that 27 times, right? Or however many times it is, as you go to you're looking through this process. And so, it can be this thing that's magical at the end, but getting through it. So give me an example maybe of one of those services that
sure.
would be something you offer that's exceptional, that kind of eases that, just I'm tired, I don't want to see another place, or whatever it is that people go through.
I could go through so many examples, but I'll just give you a couple of them real quick. Um, One of the things I do for my clients, they're moving, right? One of the expenses they're going to come across is packing material, right? And what a pain.
Yeah.
I have a garage full of boxes and packing material I'm dying to give you.
Oh, nice. That is
And
such.
when you're done with it, I'll come pick it up from you and I'll hand it to the next person. As long as you don't mind a couple of gently used boxes. But think about the amount of money that you can spend. If you go to U-Haul or wherever, and you're spending money on boxes and bubble wrap and crinkle paper and that little foam paper that goes in between your dishes and stuff like that, right? You can spend quite a bit of money just packing.
Wow.
Let
What a
me
story,
let me
man.
bring that stuff to you and save you the headache.
And,
Um,
and looking for it, right? I mean, when's the last time you went to a supermarket and asked for a box? Because you don't want to
oh,
spend the money and then trying to get them to
oh,
give you something is like, oh my gosh. Yes.
when I've been doing it for so long now, Brian, that
Uh,
I have all kinds of people out in my network that
mhm.
are texting me all the time, going, "Hey, I got some boxes for you." Oh, great! Swing by the house on my way out and about in the
Yeah.
world, and so
Oh
I'm
my.
just trying to provide ease for my clients. One of the other things is home warranties, right? Um, I found that first of all, the majority of buyers don't even know, even though that it's in our contract to buy and sell, don't even know that home warranties are a thing. They don't know what they are. They don't know what they cover. So educating people on that, and then having a home warranty paid in full for the first year for my buyers. Okay. You walked in the house, God forbid something happens to the house a month in, and you just wrote the big check,
Mhm.
and we're going to make sure you're covered for those things. But on the other side of it, we can do that for sellers too. You know, so we're getting ready to list your house. Let's get you covered under a home warranty. It's not going to cost the seller anything.
Mhm.
And if something comes up at inspection, something comes up during their under contract period, their escrow period, they're covered, right? So I think that in the last 4 years of doing the home warranties for both buyers and sellers, I think that I'm somewhere around $30,000 that I've saved clients by just making sure they were covered on this thing.
I bet. Because it isn't it always when we least expect it or we don't want it to, that's when something breaks. The day you go
Yeah.
look at the house, right, then all of a sudden the water heater is out and you're like, this has never happened to me before. But it's
Oh
just,
yeah.
it's whatever, whoever's law it is, that those things happen. And I love the fact that that's something that you're saying, hey, we're going to make sure that you have this. We're going to make sure that, for the first year of all the things you have to think about, this isn't going to be one of them. Hey,
Yeah.
that's really cool. I told you I'd ask you this because this is the fun question of your superpower, and you said you mean the one I wish I had or the one that I actually have. And so I would love for you just to kind of go through, hey, what is the superpower that if you could have it, you'd want to have it? But what is it that you do that your superpower that makes you such a good realtor?
Well, I'll answer the first question. What do I wish I had? And this will expose my inner nerd here. I'm gonna tell you. I grew up being a Star Wars fan. I wish that I had force powers.
There we go.
So if we're gonna call that a superpower, that's I wish I could just move things around,
Yeah,
change people's minds, all this fun stuff.
yeah.
But
All the
but what?
Jedi mind
Oh,
tricks, right?
yeah,
I
some of
love
that
it.
stuff. That'd be great. Um, but what do I think that my real superpower is? I think that it is being able to communicate with individuals on levels that they want to be communicated with on. I see not just in our industry, but just out in the world, people are very, very centered on themselves. And sometimes there's so much miscommunication because we're not looking across the table and figuring out how to communicate with that individual.
Mhm.
And that's what I'm striving to do. Every time I sit down and go, what does this person need? How do I need to approach my communication with this individual so that we can have a valuable exchange? Because I can't help them the way they want to be helped if I can't talk to them the way they want to be talked to. So that I think is something that I'm
That is so.
striving to always be better at, but I think it's something I'm good at.
Yeah, no, I love that. I did a podcast for a guy who's something about Adam, Adam and Eve and being an Adam man. And I talked about in my, as I was talking to me, it's like, what is it that has helped you to be effective with people? And I said, Gary Chapman wrote this book called The Five Love Languages, where it's like
Oh yeah.
acts of service and quality time and gifts and words of affirmation, physical touch. Those are the five. And so one of the things that I said in that is I have been so good at being able to identify somebody's love language because I care about them. And if I can identify with their love language and I can communicate them, if they're a person, I give the example of my daughter who loves gifts. That's her love
Yeah,
language is gifts. And if I give her a gift card, right, she's upset because there's no thought put into it. And
sure.
that's the love language, right? My wife is words of affirmation where I can go make the bed all day because that's like an acts of service, but she could care less. She wants me to say, "You look good today. You do this right." But I do that with my clients. I do that with the people I'm around. It sounds like you are the exact same way. Is like, hey, I want to communicate with you on your level where you're at because
Yeah.
that's what's going to be most effective to you. And I think there's so many people in our industry who just are looking, like you said, are thinking about themselves, thinking about, oh, I really don't want to take you around to all these houses because that's going to take time out of what I want to do the rest of the day. So I'll show you this house, and we'll go in a hurry. And if the person's love language is quality time, they want to spend time and know that you're going to do a good job for them, right? Or something
Yeah.
like that, where you're just going, this is so amazing, and so I love that you're saying that, and whether you have identified it as that or not, but the fact that you're doing that it means so much to people in the end. And then people go, well, how come Andrew's so successful and I'm not? Well, Andrew has a superpower that you don't, and he actually uses it, and you don't. And so I think that's so cool. Let's kind of trans over to the market. Kind of tell me about what's happening in your world with this market, and what are and then just say, okay, this is where it's at. This is where I think it's going to go. So people can kind of even just go, okay, I get it. I can be encouraged. Should I wait? Should I not wait? What are your thoughts on our current market and where we're at?
Uh, Wonderful question. Maybe I should have said the superpower one is the power to predict the future.
Oh my gosh, really?
But I guess I'll preface everything I'm about to say with I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and I think that's what a lot of us have learned over the last 15 months is that not only do we not know what's going on, but the people who are supposed to know what's going to be happening, they don't know what's going to happen either. I think this time last year I was sitting in a webinar with one of the national people who's next summer we're going to see this, and this, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, great.
Hey.
I think I parroted everything that dude said for 9 months, and none of it happened.
And none of it
so
happened. None of it, yeah.
so I'll say that we may think that there's a lot coming down the road one way or the other, and I wouldn't take anybody's prediction
Mhm.
as the gospel for any reason. But what I think that we're seeing right now, and what I think we're going to see is that inventory remains low in our marketplace. In fact, I think one of the benchmarks was the middle of August. We had 100 listings more than we had the year before at the exact same time.
Wow.
100. Okay. That's it. So, we talk about inventory is increasing, and that's true. But in the large perspective of things, inventory is still very, very low. And so, conventionally speaking, when inventory is low, you're going to see prices go up,
Mhm.
right? But the problem is in our in our market, and you alluded to it earlier when you were talking about this being an unprecedented market, is that inventory is low, but demand has also come down a significant amount. We've got about a third of the buyers in our marketplace that we had even 6 or 7 months ago, let alone a year and a half ago. And so the demand and the supply have continued to match each other. So yes, we have seen home values come down a little bit in the last 12 months. There's no denying that has happened. But we haven't seen a massive correction
Mhm.
because the supply and the demand continue to meet each other. And it's going to continue like that. In my opinion, it's going to continue like that until the interest rates start to improve in a significant manner. And I say that prefacing, I don't think we're ever going to see the days of 3% again.
Yeah.
prior to 2020, I think it was when we dropped to 3% and sometimes below that, 2020, 2021. The last time we saw 3% interest rates was 1956.
Mm-hmm.
So when people say they want to wait for them to come down, well, if you've got 70 years, good luck. I'm not going to live another 70 years, I'm sure of it. But so until we see some of these interest rates start to improve, and let's say between 5 and 6%,
Mm-hmm.
that's going to allow buyers to really come back to the market. But the inventory is not really set to improve. I think that there is at least some reality that needs to be seen here with rate lock, where we have a lot of homeowners. I don't know what the statistics are, Brian. I don't, but I think we have the majority of homeowners out there that either bought or refinanced when these interest rates were 2.5, 3.5%. And unless life throws something at them that is going to require them to sell, buy, move, whatever that is happening, they might want to move, but they're not going to.
Yeah.
And so that inventory is going to remain low. And until we see a misconnection, a disconnect here on supply and demand, we're not going to see drastic movement. So what I think that means for buyers right now is that if you can find a way around the interest rate, right? Short-term buy downs, 2-1 buy downs, 3-2-1 buy downs, even just looking at a purchase or a refinance right now, knowing that sometime in the next 24 to 36 months, we're going to expect at least some improvement to refinance back into. If you can look at it, if you can weather the short term and look at the long term, right now what you have is opportunity. Because while we don't see values coming down in a major way, they have come down, and we might see them come down a little bit more in the next, let's call it 6 months. So there's opportunity out there, but what we are seeing that buyers are getting are terms packages from sellers, right? Sellers are willing to do short-term buy downs. They are negotiating at an inspection at a level that I've never seen in my career, right? Where inspection objections are coming through, and you might have 6 to 10 items on there, and sellers going, okay, I'll figure it out, because they want to sell their house. They worked really hard to get that buyer in the first place. They're not ready to walk away from buyers. So if you are a buyer right now, you have more power than you've had in over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So the opportunity is there. But on the flip side, if you're selling a house, we're still near record highs for value.
Yeah.
If we were to concede that, say, values have come down around 5 or 6% from the peak of quarter 1 of 2022,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, quarter 1 of 2022 saw a value growth of over 6% in 3 months, and we've given 5 or 6% back in 18 months since then. And the year before that was 18% value growth, 20% in some areas. So homeowners need to remember right now that even if they are looking to enter the market to sell, you're still getting near record highs for these homes. And just because the market is balanced a little bit doesn't mean that you're giving everything away.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess the key in there is thinking, okay, if you do sell, right, where do you go? If you're going to go to Texas, or you're going to go to Wyoming or Illinois or something like that, then you're going to get way more for your dollar. But if you're trying to move from, I got a 3% interest rate on my $400,000 house that's in Aurora, and I want to move to out to Southeast Aurora or whatever, and then I got to look at a $800,000 house that has a 7% interest rate. That is a scary thought at some point. And so I totally
Sure.
get what you're saying, and where it goes. And so we just have to watch it closely, but there
Yeah,
are opportunities that are out there right now for people to
absolutely.
be able to get stuff. And there are still people flooding into our state, believe it or not, that are looking for places to live. I don't see construction slowing down. I see whether they're building 20,000 houses out here over off of E470 and the
Oh,
70 freeway. So they're trying to increase inventory faster than we have people who are needing it, and it's not happening yet. But there are opportunities if you're truly looking for those opportunities. Well,
I
Andrew,
think you're
we're
correct.
we're getting down to our time here, and so I
Sure.
want to make sure that let everybody know how to get a hold of you. Maybe give some final thoughts, but I would like to, maybe at one point we can have, maybe in 3 or 4 months we can do this again, and maybe have one of your clients on.
Oh,
I would love to
oh, I
do
would
that.
love
I
that.
would love to talk about, hey, what was my experience like? How did it all work out for me? That kind of stuff, and kind of get their perspective. If you're willing to do that, I would love to have you on
I
to
would be honored to come back and do it.
Oh, cool. So if you could
I
just
This has been fun.
oh, good. Yeah. So tell us how to get a hold of you again, and then maybe any closing thoughts that you would want to leave with anybody.
Well, again, thank you for having me, and to anybody listening, I appreciate your time. You can find me again, denver100.com. You can That's the website for my brokerage firm. You can find me on there. You can find me on social media if you search Andrew Malkoski, just like it shows here on the screen. I think I'm getting the pointing right.
You got it. Perfect.
It's not hard to find me. It's a pretty unique name. You can find me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and you can also reach me directly. You can call me or text me at 303-902-8209. I'd be honored just to talk to anybody that just has questions. I mean, this market it's an interesting one, and we you and I mean, our jobs are to really coach and teach people. So, um, and Brian, I didn't get a chance to ask you. So my last thoughts are a question for you. You asked me about how I see things right now. How about in your world? I know you do a lot of different things. Wear a few different hats. So tell me a little bit about how do you see things going for you and your clients for the next 12 months?
Well, I guess one of the unique things is I get to specialize in reverse mortgages as well as first time home buyer DPA programs. And so
Oh wow.
when I do, and so I span the gamut. I'm like on two far ends of it. When I think about the reverse mortgage world and reverse for purchase, I think it might only be only one of the ways that people that are in their senior years can move into a house, whether they're having to downsize or leave where they're at because it's too big and they're wanting to move to a 55 and older community or whatever. I think the reverse mortgage is probably the best tool that they could possibly use now because they only have to put 50% down, and then be able to keep some of the other money that they sold from their house and then never have a payment for the rest of their life. So it is like one of the best times ever. And we're not really worried about interest rate because they're not making a payment, right? It's their
Right.
kids that have to worry about the interest rate. On the down payment assistance side, I don't. There's more programs now, and there's more ability to help people with down payments than there has ever been. I
Yeah.
guess where we get into where it's kind of tough is into, what is that payment going to be? Where I did
Sure.
like a 400 and some $1,000 house, and we're at a $3,200 a month payment, but I still go back to that person that we moved into a $3,200 a month payment was paying $2,700 at the apartment, and we just basically transferred a lot of what they were paying over to a new home, and it's theirs. And this
Yeah.
was a grandma and grandpa that I just did a month ago that had never bought a house in their entire life and then never experienced
Wow.
home ownership. So there's so many cool things. I mean, we have a Metro DPA program with the $25,000 grant. We have the what's the foundation, the Deerfield Fund. That one is for Black Wealth, but that's $40,000, and you compare the two where you have
Whoa.
up to $70,000. We have Chinoa and Chafa, and there's all these programs that are out there. And people says, well, you have to be on low income to be able to do that. Well, the household income level is like 160, 170,000, which isn't most people can
Hmm.
qualify for a 25,000 incentive or $15,000 or 15% of their down payment. So in that respect, it's a really good place to be.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
and I continue to tell people interest rates will probably go down to those fives and fours that you were talking about in the next couple of years. I mean, that's kind of what I believe will happen. And so get something now and then we refinance. But if it doesn't go down and you don't get something now you've maybe priced yourself out of that market, and now you're not able to get
Yeah.
anything, and you're stuck paying somebody else's mortgage, you know, for 10 years and paying them $300,000, which is probably the price of a house that you could have almost purchased, without interest.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So that's where I think we're at. I don't think people should wait if they have the ability to move on. And I tell people, call me all the time and let's see where you're at, because you
Yeah.
might be a lot closer than you think you are, and especially if we can get you some assistance to be able to get into stuff. So, I know it's my show and you're asking, which is great.
No. I think I think it's
That's
really great
awesome.
because you've said a few things that made me think about the same thing a couple of times here on this podcast so far, and it's just that the thing that I keep coming back to is that when you are owning versus renting, and you're looking at that PITI, that P is that principal. And every time you pay that principal, it's just like moving money from your checking account to your savings account,
Mhm.
right? And people never really think about that. And like, yeah, the payment's a little bit higher, but are you saving money on top of that? Like, are you putting money in a savings account on top of that? Could you take some of that money and put it into your home savings account by paying principal?
Yeah.
And I think that it's just something that people just don't think about a lot of, about how one way or the other, you're paying somebody's mortgage. It ought
You
to
are.
be yours.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for so much for being on. As
Thank you.
I tell everybody, hey, one, you can do this. If you have not purchased a house before in your life, call one of us and let's talk about how we can do this for you, right? If you gotta have a job. I mean, I'm not saying you don't have to have anything, but you got a job and you're working and you really want this, call us so we can put a plan together. So you can do this. The second is you deserve this. The part of the American dream is the ability for every single person who lives here in America to
Yeah.
be able to realize this. And you
Yes.
deserve it. Not you didn't do anything in your life that says you shouldn't have this ability to be able to create some generational wealth. And then the last thing that I always say is let us.
Hey, Brian, I don't know if it's still recording, but I can't hear you at all.
How much did I talk without you being able to hear me?
I heard, let us help you.
All
And then it
right.
went
And,
blank.
and so what I did is I said, let us help you, and hit the mute button. So
Well, I was like, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's recording,
so
but
here we go. Yeah. So let us
say it
help you.
again.
Oh my gosh, that's all I'm saying is let us help you. We're the experts. We know what's going on. We know what we're doing. Andrew knows how to help you find a house. If you try to do it yourself, you're going to just be spinning around trying to figure that all out. And so, yes, please let us help you. And so, thank you for being here and listening to another edition of the Mile High Real Estate Spotlight Podcast. Again, thank you, Andrew, for being on the show. Hey, we'll look for you on the next one. And I can't wait to see you in your own home. Have a nice day.
Hey, thanks, Brian. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.